Welcome to Time's Quiet March. Who were the Crusaders? Europe's warriors of faith and glory? Let's dive in.
Europe was threatened in the year 1095. Christian territories within the Mediterranean had remained lost for centuries. There had been complaints of harassment of pilgrims. And then the Byzantine Empire, the defending wall of the East, had fallen apart at Manzikert, 1071, and humiliation against the Seljuk Turks. Pope Urban II issued his call at Clermont.
Raise your banners high, knights of Christ. The Lord wills it. Go now, and let his light guide you to victory.
Europe's warriors were not asked to conquer, but only to defend their world. The soldiers who gathered were destined to be remembered not merely as the Crusaders, but the restorers of their world and their holy city of Jerusalem. The Christians of the late 11th century believed they were besieged. The land, which had been in Christian possession since the 4th century, in Jerusalem, Antioch, and Alexandria, is lost after the Arab conquests, dating back to 638. Although Christians remained in these areas and practiced their faith, Europe claimed this land was stolen from them, their holy heritage. For 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire had served as the Eastern Shield. However, this changed during the Battle of Manzikert, also known as the Battle of Malazgirt, which occurred on 26th of August 1071, when the army of Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes was shattered by Turkish rider soldiers, led by the brilliant Alp Arslan, and most of Anatolia fell under Turkish rule. Journeying to religious centers had become a danger.
Your Holiness, the northern territories remain exposed according to these reports. We must address this immediately.
News of assaulted pilgrims and pillaged churches alarmed all. In desperation, Emperor Alexios V Komnenos sent emissaries to the west for soldiers, not conquest. Pope Urban II transformed this appeal into a justifiable holy war. He made it these reasons: protect Christians, establish access to pilgrims, regain control of Jerusalem, and sins will be forgiven. Thus, Crusaders were not occupation forces to the Crusaders, who viewed themselves first and foremost as the protectors of their religion and Christianity, and therefore the embodiment of all the values. These men, soon to become Crusaders, represented the best but also the worst that Western Europe had to offer. By 1096, volunteers had come not only from what might be considered modern-day France, the Holy Roman Empire, and Italy, but also from England. They represented a coupling of landed knights, lower members of the nobility, and commoners. French regions like Normandy, Aquitaine, and Champagne were renowned for supplying the country with the most skilled knights on horseback. They were clad in hauberks of chainmail that were articulated together, helmets that were cone-shaped with nasal guards, and kite-shaped shields emblazoned either with a cross or a coat of arms. The knights' horses were trained to execute charging formations, while squires brought up trailers of arms and rations. Knights from the Holy Roman Empire, modern Germany, tended to wear heavy armor and be noted for well-controlled formations. Their equipment may have included lances, longswords, and round shields, with steel helmets that covered the head and neck with chainmail coifs. Often, they had experience from local wars, which served them well in the challenges of the Middle East. The city-states of Italy, especially Venice and Genoa, also offered their naval skills. These ships transported the Crusaders through the Mediterranean Sea, and the sailors traded goods like wine, olive oil, and silk. There were also members of the Italian nobility who led their retinues of knights and mercenaries. The Crusaders also recruited young sons of nobles who had limited land and wanted to achieve fame, fortune, and salvation. The clergy preached to them the offer of plenary indulgence to those who took part in the defense of the Holy Lands. These volunteers did not all function in the same way. Some were seasoned soldiers, others were inexperienced and undisciplined, ill-equipped as well as impulsive. Nevertheless, they all did share a common ideology. They were fighting on behalf of God and recovering the Holy Lands. Months of arduous travel finally led the Crusaders to the Eastern Mediterranean. Their arduous path, fraught with hunger, illness, and battles, led to the siege of crucial cities. These individuals, be it the knights, the common soldiers, or the pilgrims, believed that God himself was being served by their actions.
We breach the gate! Press the advantage!
The Crusader forces first assembled at the city of Constantinople in 1097. where Emperor Alexios I Komnenos carefully orchestrated the crossing of the Bosporus into Anatolia. After this, the forces proceeded through the territories of the Seljuk Turks, battling ambushes and difficult terrain. Some of the forces kept disciplined while others did as they pleased, but the common binding force was the Crusaders' conviction of their divine cause. At Antioch, 1097-1098, one of the first significant sieges the Crusaders experienced occurred. Knights donned complete armor with their steel helmets featuring nasal guards and kite shields adorned with crosses. The Templar Knights had not yet been formed as an official order at this time. However, their forerunner in militarized monk orders and vows of love began to establish itself. The engines Aquarel battered city walls with stone projectiles and scaling ladders being used by infantry in attempts to tunnel underneath enemy fortifications. At last, in 1099, after overcoming numerous hurdles, the Crusaders reached Jerusalem. This was a sacred place for, and hallowed by, Christians, Jews, and Muslims. The place had strong defensive positions to protect it against invaders. For the Crusaders, this marked the culmination not only of their spiritual fervor, but also of their military expertise. They had to make use of all skills they had cultivated to capture this place.
The siege cannot continue. We must breach the eastern gate by sunrise, or this entire campaign fails.
Success would mean that they had received heavenly support for their cause.
Guard you now in this holy office.
By virtue of hardship and sacrifice, these Crusaders were able to settle in the Levant and established various Crusader states, named the County of Edessa, the Principality of Antioch, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Notwithstanding the diversity of Europe's warriors, it is certain that they all believed that they were directed by the guidance of God. After winning at Jerusalem, 1099, they encountered a new task of keeping this newly gained territory. The environment was very aggressive, not densely inhabited by Europeans, and surrounded by Muslim armies very keen to regain it. To conquer and retain it, they established states of the Crusaders, Kingdom of Jerusalem, 1099, County of Edessa, 1098, Principality of Antioch, 1098, and County of Tripoli, 1109. Knights not only protected as fighters, but also as administrators. Castles and fortresses were erected to safeguard routes of trade and shield urban areas. Soldiers roamed around the territory to safeguard both pilgrims and settlers on land expeditions. Crusader armies consisted of knights from French, Norman, Italian, and German traditions.
Flank before the reinforcements arrive. This is where we break them.
Most of whom wore chainmail hauberks and conical helmets of steel with cross surcoats on their armor. These war horses were well trained to gallop either for an attack or for a territory patrol. In the year 1119, the Knights Templar Order was officially established by King Baldwin II of Jerusalem. Their order was made up of monks who happened to be both warriors and pious Christians. Their order was characterized by wearing white robes bearing a red cross, and they believed and followed the rule of Saint Benedict's religious life, which included poverty, chastity, and obedience. Apart from the Templars, other religious groups emerged, including the Hospitallers, which had the dual role of military service as well as caring for the sick and wounded. It can thus be seen that the Crusaders formed a network of protection in the region of the Levant through these religious groups. These were not easy tasks. The Crusader states experienced perpetual skirmishes, besieges, and raids. However, the Crusaders thought their cause was just. Each triumph was seen as the reward of God, every fortress erected as a citadel of Christendom in a place regarded holy. The 1120s saw the establishment and maintenance of the Crusader states, which represented a presence of Christendom in the region of the Levant. Knights, common soldiers, and monks had turned this area into a system of fortresses, roads, and settlements, protecting routes for pilgrims going to sacred destinations. Although this community was remote and threatened many times, the Crusaders' faith in their mission motivated them to acts of bravery. Knights Templar, formed in 1119, gained legendary status for their piety, discipline, and chivalry. They protected the ways of the pilgrims, safeguarded crucial fortresses, and trained young knights in the battle skills. They were known for their white robes marked by red crosses, long swords, shields, and lances, along with their religious vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Their examples of fighting courage became the essence of the Crusaders' devotion. Side by side with these factions, The Hospitallers also tended the ill and struggled to protect territories. Knights from Europe roamed danger zones, even outnumbered, yet they stood strong. Siegeska, border patrols, and battles challenged their determination, but the religious beliefs of the Crusaders kept them united. Apart from their success on the battlefields, the Crusaders promoted cross-cultural activities of trade and the exchange of knowledge between the East and West. Trade activity thrived in the markets of cities such as Jerusalem, Acre, and Antioch, owing to the security provided by the Crusaders. The Crusaders had done more than conquer by 1140. They had left behind a heritage of heroism, religious conviction, and defensive protection. They had made certain that pilgrims could travel through in safety, that religious shrines were protected, and that European fighters had carried out what they felt was the divine mandate. The Crusader story had provided an inspiration for heroism, devotion, and belief in defending religious tenets.
Non nobis Domine, sed nomini tuo da gloria.